to Cindy's library today. I am Cindy, and today we're going to talk about what I managed to read for the month of February, second half. So, shall we get to it? First of all, I read Castle Rackrent by Maria Edgeworth for febregency, which leaves ennui for next year. Afraid I didn't get anything more than this done for febregency, but this was quite interesting. In it, we follow Thaddeus Quirk, who is a steward for 4 generations of a family at this estate in Ireland. And none of the 4 generations are exactly ideal. Does that stop Thaddeus from absolutely loving all of them? Though admittedly, some more than less. Some more and some less. Nope. Granted, what I've read before from Maria Edgeworth is historical fiction. But this really seems like Thaddeus is telling his memoirs, his memories of this family. So a bit different in that way. Interesting, and I'm sure it's a pretty accurate depiction of Ireland at this time. Then I listened to The White Ship by Charles Spencer, Conquest, Anarchy, and the Wrecking of Henry I's Dreams. So this, we go back in time and forward in time, even if the focus is on the White Ship. We start way back with the Norman conquest, with William the Conqueror, and we get all of that set up, and then we get William's various sons, 3 of whom are particularly important for the story. And their story is how we end up with Henry I. And Henry, he was a decent king. He made a lot of plans. After he was settled, they were such lovely plans. And then the White Ship sank with his heir, 2 of his other children at least, cousins, other relations, children of nobles and their relations, even some of his own nobles. Decimated the nobility, tragic on a national, political, and personal scale. And poor Henry I, he did his best. In the years remaining, did not get another legitimate heir, and everything fell apart at his death. Ironically, not in the next generation, but in the generation after, he basically see what Henry wanted. But boy, the way we got there was decades of anarchy, with Stephen and Matilda fighting. Oh, I also have to say, wonderful narrative voice. Loved it for that. And it's a part of history we don't hear a lot about, so good on that as well. So I also read volume 2 of the Denarian Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, edited by Thaddeus Tuffentseimer. So yep, more more young Sherlock Holmes adventures. And the last one the first one basically ends the year after the last one in volume 1 and the last one in here basically ends shortly before the one college story Sir Arthur Conan Doyle gave us for Sherlock Holmes. So lots and lots of fun here. I also read Agency, part of a new series by the Maxwell Institute. Themes in the Doctrine and Covenants. And yes, the Doctrine and Covenants definitely talks about agency. This one is by Terryl Gibbons. His approach is historical, meaning he goes, does he touch on the Old Testament? If not, he goes through the New Testament and the early church and how ideas of agency changed over time to what Joseph Smith found during his day, during the beginning of the Restoration. And of course, that leads up to today as well. So, interesting exploration of the subject. I also read the second volume of the Unsellected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. Loved it, very fun. And Emma, we are introduced to more people. We have a complication added to the plot, which is resolved in this story, but it will have ramifications. And yes, Emma does manage to get another book to add to her empty bookshelf, mostly empty bookshelf. So that was a reread. Next month is volume 3, and I am excited because I have not read volume 3 yet. I also listened to The Secret Adversary, Tommy and Tuppence. Tried reading it last year, or was it the year before? Wasn't working for me, so listened to it. Perfect for listening. Great adventure. Tommy and Tuppence, childhood friends, re-met during the war, re-meeting now, a year, maybe 2 after the war. Tommy's been demobilized, needs a job, can't find a job, has already spent his demobilization money. Tuppence wants to stay in London and not go back home to her curate father, but needs a job too, so they decide to become adventurers. When lo and behold, they find themselves in the middle of a real adventure. Know very little at first, except everyone seems to be looking for a girl named Jane Finn. And things go on from here, plenty of excitement and mystery. And what can I say? I went to the library to pick up some other things. They had these. I couldn't resist. So this is The Founding of Valdemar trilogy by Mercedes Lackey. So she's created this Valdemar world. That's not the actual world. That's the main country we spend time in. But this whole world with this country Valdemar in the middle of it. A unique country in many ways. With an interesting history of how they got there, but never till now have we actually had the story of how they got there. Yes, this starts 1500 years plus before the first story, perhaps, with Baron Valdemar living in the Eastern Empire, which is awful for a long time because his father and his grandfather have been making plans since their days for leaving. And of course, the current Baron Valdemar knows all about that. Has to try and keep it a secret from the Emperor or any of his agents. Not necessarily thinking they'll leave now or even in a year or necessarily even in his lifetime. But events in the first book, well, they guarantee they have to leave. Book 2 is basically their journeys. Book 3 is 10 years later. They have founded the new kingdom of Valdemar. And with 10 years past, things are not so difficult as the first years. Still not easy, but not as difficult. Things are starting to become more settled. But that doesn't mean problems are over or that Baron Valdemar is not still worried about the future, which leads to his acts and prayers, which lead to Valdemar becoming the country we all know and love, complete with companions that look like horses but aren't. I would love a companion. Actually, I'd probably prefer a fire cat, but I'm a cat person apparently, even though I don't have a cat. Anyway, that is what I read, and double checking here. Yeah, I think that's everything. So, wasn't expecting to read some Mercedes Lackey, but reminded me of why I love her. One note, it partially depends on what perspective you are at or you are with in these books, but some perspectives are a little bit rougher than others and may have language. Not uncommon, seemed a bit more than some of her earlier books, though. And, well, she never goes into detail. She talks about life, including some of the sadder or grittier parts occasionally. Just so you know. For that reason, some of her works I like better than others. Some of her works, I would say, if anything, can be a bit more gritty. I'm thinking of the magical Sherlock Holmes, but not. On the other hand, I'll spend too long. I can't say for sure, but they're more likely to have less language. So it all depends. And there's one series, well, let's just say there were some things in it I did not appreciate as much, just because I don't enjoy reading intimate encounters, especially non-marital ones. Anyone's really, but that's just me. She definitely is a writer that can draw you in, though. Anyway, that's what I read for this month, for the second half of this month. Bit sad I didn't get more read for febregency, but it was just not in the cards. Hopefully I'll be able to read more next year. Looking forward to it. Maybe I'll slip in a Scott later this year. We'll have to see. Anyway, how has your February reading been? Love to hear all about it. Thank you so much for stopping by. Truly do appreciate it. So until next time, I hope we all stay safe and healthy. And as always, happy reading.